What's up? Welcome in a big day for the Chicago Bears. It might not get the same headlines maybe as drafting Justin Fields, but anytime you have a brand new president and CEO, the trickle-down effect throughout the franchise is big. This is the first time. What year did Ted Phillips get that job?
1999. Here's the exact date. February 10th, 1999. He replaced Michael McCaskey.
So we're talking 24 years. This is a quarter century. This is a big deal. But Kevin Warren will be, as we've talked about already, but it is finalized, although not officially announced yet. But both of us on this podcast have confirmed it at this point. He will be the next president and CEO of the Chicago Bears, the Big Ten commissioner, coming over. And we wanted to get you to the pod right away. We got a lot coming up. We got Nate Tice, which we already pre-recorded. We're going to throw it in here to this episode, and we got picks for the weekend. So this is a mega podcast today. But, John, your initial reaction to the Kevin Warren news?
It's easy to see how the Bears were attracted to Warren, right? They need a new stadium. They have the property secured in Arlington Heights, the old Arlington Park racetrack property. And Kevin Warren, when he's with the Vikings, this is before the Big Ten, built one of the finest and one of the most beautiful stadiums. You and I can both agree. We've been there multiple times now. The place is stunning. U.S. Bank Stadium in downtown Minneapolis. That is Kevin Warren's baby. Now he gets to leave his mark again with the Bears building their brand new stadium, something like that. Maybe a little bit better. Maybe. Get my hopes up here a little bit, but you can see why he made so much sense for the Bears.
Look, I want to be careful to not turn this into a negative Ted Phillips thing. But the reality is when they put on the broadcast, was that last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever, I think it was the last game, they put up on the thing, Ted Phillips retiring, and it says the date he got the job or whatever. And then under accomplishments, it says renovated Soldier Field. It's like when they're going into this massive closing on Arlington Heights, whatever that thing was that the city put out the other day with the unrealistic, by the way, beautiful stadium.
Which was also much better than their original
It looked great.
Presentation. Yeah, a lot better.
Probably unrealistic. The point being, they needed somebody who is an expert at getting stadiums done. Not
just done, but
it's built. We see it every week.
Beautifully done.
Yes. That's honestly of all the things, and I think there's other things we need to talk about here than just the stadium. But number one, that's what I'm most excited about. Forget, Bears, whatever. You and I grew up in this city. We don't do stadiums well in this city. The Ricketts and what they did with Wrigley is pretty much the only accomplishment I can think of in my lifetime.
And that took some time. Let's not forget the netting that was underneath the grandstands there to collect falling debris.
And it's still not perfect, but it has sort of a Lambeau-esque, they managed to renovate an old stadium into something that's modern and not nicer. Still not a lot of space to walk around on the concourse and stuff like that, but they did a pretty good job with Wrigley Field's renovation. Other than that, the United Center's fine. Guaranteed rate field's actually better than it gets credit for, but let's be honest, it's not any kind of stadium gem. This is Chicago. And whether it's in the suburbs or it's in the city, we should have a world-class stadium that can host multiple events, even if it's only one Super Bowl, because I don't know how many times they're going to want to come here with the cold weather. But if they build it, the Super Bowl will come. And this gives me optimism, really for the first time in my life, that they might actually be able to pull this off.
Within its first 3 years of existence, U.S. Bank Stadium hosted a Super Bowl and a Final Four. I think that Final Four set an attendance record as well.
Yeah.
So those are certain things you could see in the northwest suburbs. I do think the organization, they still believe what Ted Phillips did with Soldier Field as a success. Now that became outdated kind of quickly. I do remember it being kind of praised at the time because you have to remember there was that Elk Grove deal that fell through for Michael McCaskey, and then the city of Chicago wanted nothing to do with Michael McCaskey. So this was a success at least relative to the time, for Ted Phillips. Certain history needs to be said there, but yes, in terms of building something new, something on a massive piece of property, building a hotel, a residential area, an entertainment district with restaurants, shops, and all of that, open spaces. Kevin Warren seems perfectly suited to build what the Bears want and need in Arlington Heights.
Yeah, I mean, he's got it on his resume already, right? And that's why it's a great fit. Now, there's other things beyond the stadium too that I think matter here. I mean, when he became COO for the Vikings, he restructured the organization, and they brag about that up there, the way in which he restructured it. It changed dramatically in terms of diversity and opportunities for women within that organization, which I will say, I think the Bears have been doing a pretty good job of that in recent years too. And George McCaskey's been on that, what's it called? The Diversity Council.
Yes, for the NFL.
With Kevin Warren in the past, by the way, before Kevin left for the Big Ten. So that's where there's a connection there that I think matters, by the way. But there's also the money factor. The Vikings were not a very profitable team before. And now they're jumped up. I think they're towards the top. So there's, again, tangible, concrete evidence right there on his NFL resume that suggests this is a great move for the Chicago Bears.
All right, Adam, the release actually just came in 10:10 a.m. into the inbox here. And I want to read you this sentence. It's the second sentence of this release. Warren will oversee the general manager and the business operations of the club. Let me repeat. Warren will oversee the general manager. That would be Ryan Poles. Your thoughts?
That's big. I mean, this is interesting. This is interesting because, I mean, that reads very, granted, it's just what it says in the statement, but that reads to me like they're
second sentence of the statement. First one is just saying Kevin Warren's hired.
So for, I mean, maybe some of our listeners that don't necessarily care about the stuff as much as we do, I mean, that's changing the reporting structure back to what it was for pretty much the entire time we've covered this team until last year when they fired Ryan Pace and they said the new GM is going to report to George McCaskey instead of Ted Phillips. So it opens to a lot of questions. Is that fair to Ryan Poles? Was this something that was previously discussed? Because I think you and I both agree that the people inside that building knew this Ted Phillips retirement thing was coming for a while.
Yes.
Like well before they announced it. Or is this something that Kevin Warren demanded in his negotiations? And in that sense,
now that's an interesting point. Like, that's something that could be clarified. You hope can be clarified on Tuesday. Next Tuesday is when they're going to introduce Kevin Warren to the media and the fan base. But that's an interesting point. He's leaving a huge position with the Big Ten to come to this job. Maybe he wants full power.
Yeah, and I think he had a lot of leverage.
Absolutely.
So that would kind of put George McCaskey in an awkward position where maybe that's not exactly what he promised Ryan Poles, but now things have changed and you got to check. Or like I said off the top, maybe it's something that they told Ryan a year ago that, hey, look, there's going to be a new CEO in here within a year or two. And when that happens, we're going to have you report back to.
Isn't that just like an unnecessarily awkward predicament created by the Bears then, though?
It is. And I'll say this too. Like, even last year, and I think you and I talked about this, it felt like it was just a symbolic thing that they had to change because they knew the optics in another coaching search, GM search. It never felt that different to me. Did it feel that different to you?
No, because I don't think Ted Phillips was this I'll be criticized for this overarching. I don't know, like he wasn't he wasn't making the draft picks for the Bears. That's what I'm saying. Like he wasn't standing in the way of Ryan Pace when he moved up for Mitch Trubisky. He wasn't telling Phil Emery, no, don't sign Jay Cutler to this record-setting deal. He didn't do any of that. He was a sounding board, but then there's always been contention, like about the structure of the Bears, and you hope Ryan Poles feels okay with this, because your football guy, who was still Ryan Poles, now has a new boss who wasn't here when he was first hired. Now, I know Ryan Poles released a good statement. Obviously, Warren and Poles got to know each other through this process a little bit, so there's some comfort there. But Kevin Warren still didn't hire Ryan Poles.
Right. Which is always always in sports a thing that matters, right? Like a GM inherits a coach, and then a year later he wants his own coach. Like that's why this matters.
Isn't that the story of the Bears?
Yeah.
There's a story about this on The Athletic. And you throw the quarterback in that mix too, because nobody ever really aligns on things. Maybe we're overblowing this. Maybe Kevin Warren is going to be more like Ted Phillips and just handle the business side of things and be that sounding board. But then there's that chance that he's not. Like, what if they have a 4-win season again next year? 5-win.
Right. Well, that's where I don't know that this matters that much today, but it could down the line. It's kind of what we're getting at. Like if Kevin Warren has the power to do whatever he wants with the GM position, that changes things. But you know what? This is also something that happens in all businesses. You take a job, even in the media, and then your editor changed, and then that editor doesn't like you, and then it's unfortunately it's just part of the territory that comes with working.
Yeah. If I'm Ryan Poles, I don't like that it happened so soon.
Yeah,
but you kind of knew, you should have known going in. I imagine there was some candid, honest conversations about what was happening with the Bears at that time.
I would hope so.
I would hope so. Another thing that needs to be clarified on Tuesday. I'm interested who's going to be talking, because I think it's noteworthy that the Bears put that second line in that statement. Everybody's curious about that.
So that's it. Yeah, in the statement, it also says that the press conference is on Tuesday, which makes a lot of sense. I don't know enough about the Vikings structure.
My understanding is that throughout the duration of Kevin Warren's time in Minneapolis, Rick Spielman was the football boss.
Mm-hmm. So he reported directly to the owner, not
to the Wolves. Yes, not to anybody else, but to the Wolves.
Okay.
That's not how it's playing out here.
I also know that they have a VP of football operations there
right now,
but I think that's actually under the GM. I don't think it's above the GM.
Yeah.
But
like looking back at old stories,
yeah,
when Rick Spielman was promoted to general manager, which occurred at a time, or just the title shifted the general manager, all the stories at that time make it pretty clear that he's reporting to the Wolves, and there is no mention of any other type of conduit there. He was the top football boss. And that Kevin Warren was there. He was there at that point.
Okay. Well, look, I agree. There's definitely got to be clarification on this. Nice
Can I read you Ryan Poles' statement on this real quick?
Yeah, because I was just about to say it'd be nice to hear from Ryan Poles on this too.
This is in the statement in the same release. 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs into this statement. Kevin is going to be a tremendous resource, and I am excited to get started with him, General Manager Ryan Poles said. In my time spent with him during the interview process, it quickly became apparent his resume and business acumen will be a powerful asset to helping improve our organization and ultimately reach our goal to be a championship organization.
I mean, that's also interesting. He's involved in the interview process, which makes sense. I imagine there's others.
Is this like bringing Jay Cutler into the interview process for Mark Trestman? It's a bad comp, but I don't mean to be like I think Ryan Poles. I hope he's comfortable with this. I do. You have a new boss now. You're not reporting directly to ownership. You're reporting to the CEO now. It's a new structure for you than what previously existed when you were hired after the search process run by McCaskey, Phillips, and Bill Polian.
My guess here is that, and I guess this is just a guess, but with Kevin Warren's background, what he did in Minnesota, what he did with the Big Ten, what he's going to have on his plate with the Bears, is he really even going to have the time to worry about football decisions?
I was thinking that. 100% thinking that. And also, he's expected to start in the spring, right?
Right.
So that's kind of a loose window. You know what happens before that? Free agency. The combine. The combine's next month.
Yeah.
There's a lot of NFL things that are happening before that. The draft. A lot of draft prep. Pro days.
I guess, yeah. I guess my point is I think that this is far more likely that it's just what it used to be. The same situation you just described with Ted Phillips. I don't think Kevin Warren's going to be meddling that much in football decisions. I think it's going to be Ryan Poles' show. And I think, but he would have the power to make a change. And by the way, probably should. If Kevin Warren's everything the Bears want him to be, who do you trust more to make that type of decision? Him or ownership? I'm being serious right now. And I think to George's credit, he probably understands that too. That's probably why he's doing this.
Is Kevin Warren a football guy?
He's actually more of a basketball guy.
Yeah, he played basketball, collegiate basketball.
But he's been working in the NFL a long time. I think
20-something years.
I think he knows the inner workings of not only how things work, but how they should work. So this news is all fresh, but I feel like he'll have an understanding that, like, yes, I have the power to oversee this position, but I'm going to stay out of the way. This is his show.
Until he needs to step in?
Yeah. Well, which hopefully he won't need to.
I think if you're Ryan Poles, you're at this, like, if you have to sleep on it, your final thought is, well, if he has to step in, George probably would have stepped in anyway because my job isn't going so well.
Right.
Right, if you're going to bet on yourself.
Right.
Now we know there's all sorts of power dynamics that come out of these stories. That's why the way the way things are lined up for organizations always become a storyline across the league because there are power struggles that happen. Head coach, GM, vice president, all these things that come into play. We'll see how it goes. While this is a conversation worth having, while it opens up the Bears to some criticism, I do overall think the excitement should still be there over the hiring of Kevin Warren, specifically because of the stadium and a lot of other things he provides the Bears.
Yeah, I honestly don't have a problem with this.
We'll see.
I am curious, though, about how it all played out. Like, did Poles know this could be coming when he got hired? Did he not know that? Is this something that just came together in the last few days as they finalized this?
Yeah,
so this is how it has to be.
Yeah. If you're sorry, I keep interjecting because it's just so
fired up about this.
I am fired up a little bit about it because it's interesting. I'm surprised by it a little bit because that's how, like, Poles was hired to report to McCaskey, and they just changed it on him. So if you're the Bears, you hope Ryan Poles is good with this.
Yeah.
Because your business is still football. I get you got to build a new stadium, and that is so important to, like, the dynamics of your franchise and building the wealth of the franchise, the portfolio of the franchise, and all that stuff. But your business is still winning football games, and Ryan Poles is in charge of that. He has nearly $120 million in cap space and the first overall pick in this year's draft. It's a unique spot for him to be in. It's a special opportunity to change this team for many years to come. So you hope he feels good about where he sits with his new boss coming in this spring. But I think you and I can agree, after a decades plus of covering this team, Kevin Warren will be a much needed overdue jolt to the other side of things, right? The business side.
Yes.
Right. All of that. There's a lot of good people over there. I want to be careful with what I'm saying, but this was a Bears move. The Bears made a very non-Bears move. They brought in an outsider, someone who hasn't been here for decades, to lead their franchise, their business operations of their franchise. And that stands out to me. Like Ted Phillips, he was hired in 1983. By 1999, he was their team president. There were internal candidates and whatnot. Like things had changed. This is good for George McCaskey. I'll just say that. Just in terms of what he wants the Bears to be, this is a couple steps forward for George McCaskey.
Well, and I thought just the fact that I'll never forget the first time they dropped that statement that was like, hey, we're exploring this Arlington Heights land. Do you remember that, Johns? It was like, June or something of a couple years ago. And like, I'll never forget, it popped up on Twitter and it was like, whoa, this is not like the Bears, right? Like it was like, this is just the fact that they're exploring this is an indication that they're ready to make some changes and jump up into the current business world of the NFL, which is thriving, by the way. And
more than thriving. It's the NFL.
But it just, and it just the Bears going from like this family. I want to be fair. It's not like a hobby, but you know what I'm getting at. Like this family thing to like, no, we want to be with the big boys now. This is Chicago. This is one of the biggest markets that the NFL has access to. Let's get into this world of these gorgeous stadiums and the business operations. We've updated our facilities back at Hallis Hall. To their credit, it's gorgeous. It's way better than it used to be when you and I started covering this team.
That's part of it too. The Bears are different now than when Ted Phillips took over in 1999. They have actually taken steps, and we have to give them credit for this, steps to modernize their infrastructure. They've poured a lot of resources into their football operations. Now, has that panned out and produced wins? No, we know that. The Bears have the first overall pick for a reason, but, Ryan Poles is attempting something different. But in terms of resources, they have 4 football fields at Hallis Hall. When we started covering this team, they had 2. Lovie Smith's last year, they had a cafeteria that was the size of, I don't know what, a meeting room? It wasn't big.
It's technically have 5 fields if you include the Walter Payton Center.
Yeah, they have 5 fields now.
Yeah.
There's a viewing suite back there. Training camp is held at Hallis Hall. They added in 2019, added 200,000 square feet to their facility. That includes new offices for their business side, which have also expanded. They've taken steps to modernize, and this is another step towards that for George McCaskey.
So now here's the other side of this, right? The obvious question. We talked about this before. You can go back and listen to it. I highly recommend our interview with Matt Fortuna a couple weeks ago when the news that Kevin Warren was the favorite first broke. But the other side of this is, okay, well, wait a minute. Why is he leaving the Big Ten? These conference commissioner jobs are incredibly well paid. They are very powerful jobs. As Matt Fortuna told us, he thinks the Big Ten job is the most powerful job in college sports right now. And it's like, well, why would you leave that to go back to the NFL? This is kind of a more complicated discussion. One of the things that was it Matt reported, or was it Pete Thamel? Someone reported that Kevin Warren has aspirations of being the next commissioner of the NFL. But also the friction that kind of developed with all the COVID stuff. We don't have to dive into all of it again. I would encourage people to go back and listen to that episode from a couple weeks ago if you haven't already. But I think that there's sort of this behind the scenes mutual acceptance that this might be the best thing for all parties. Does that make sense?
Yes. But can we make clear that he left the Big Ten in an amazing place?
Yes.
They're now a national conference. Like, he was an outsider. I have this in my column. Like, an outsider became like quite the deal maker. Adding USC and UCLA to the conference, going west, making them a national conference, getting this TV deal. I mean, this massive TV deal. Matt told us about this, last week? With 3 networks, Fox, CBS, I think NBC. I'm forgetting the other one. Maybe, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
3 major networks.
NBC's in there for sure, which was new. And yeah, it's like whatever the relationships are that there's friction that exists, I think it's partly because he came from the NFL. He didn't have these college relationships. B, the whole COVID thing happened that nobody could have prepared for. And maybe he didn't handle it the best. But still, I think whether it's this or other areas of life, everybody to a point sort of gets a pass for what went down in the pandemic, right? And then the reality is, like, if he did his job, he still did his job despite all that. The TV deal isn't it like $8 billion or something?
Yeah, hold on, I got it here.
Then he adds USC and UCLA to the conference, which you might not be a fan of, but from a money standpoint, it's a great move.
7-year, $8 billion media rights deal with Fox, NBC, and CBS for the Big Ten.
3 of the 4 major networks.
That's serious. He's got connections. He's got the NFL connections that you need from his time with the Rams, Lions, and Vikings. He's got the stadium experience. And he's got more connections now from the Big Ten.
Yeah. That's why I'm not too concerned about the friction and the relationships, because I think the existing you never heard it all that when he left the Vikings. That was not a thing when he left the Vikings. In fact, it was the complete opposite. So I think whatever those NFL relationships are will still be strong.
Can we add this to the conversation? I think it's a very important part. He's the only African-American CEO in the NFL.
There you go. I agree. That's important, and that's it's a good move for the Bears. Good job.
I have this in my column. Check it out. They cast a wide net. Started with Zoom interviews. It included candidates from the NBA, from MLB, including one from the Cubs, professional soccer over in Europe. Huge net cast by George McCaskey and Ted Phillips. Kevin Warren obviously became a finalist. What was that, a couple weeks ago? And here we are on the 12th of January talking about him being in charge of the Bears now.
I'm sure it was a very coveted job. I mean, I would look at the Bears as like the sleeping giant of a franchise.
They're already a giant.
I know, but they don't win.
Well, hence the sleeping, yes.
So they're sleepy on the field.
Yes.
But there's still so much untapped potential, too, from a business standpoint, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Specifically with the stadium.
Yeah. Even beyond that, like the wins will help. But this as well as I do. Bears are kind of a national brand.
Yeah.
Like the Cubs are a national brand.
Exactly.
Like I know I kind of lost my train of thought there, but the potential for growth and leaving this franchise, like, if there's one thing I've learned about like George McCaskey in covering him, like, he wants the Bears to be the best at everything, like considered the best. He believes he has one of the best facilities in the NFL. He wants the Bears to have one of the best stadiums in the NFL. He hopes that Justin Fields and Ryan Poles help create one of the best teams in the NFL. Now, that remains to be seen, but in terms of like business operations and taking things to the next level, like, Kevin Warren is part of that. He's part of all that excitement. He really is.
Yeah. Hey, by now you probably know our next partner, and it's a really cool product. Let's talk about Athletic Greens. If you're looking to get better gut health, more energy, or a stronger immune system in a really easy, natural way, you've got to check out Athletic Greens. I'm sure you'll agree that most of us are not huge fans of having to take a bunch of pills or vitamins in the morning. But with Athletic Greens, you can get rid of all of those extra vitamin bottles and finally make some room in your cabinet. Athletic Greens is an all-in-one solution, and you'll really enjoy getting your daily vitamins. So what is this stuff? With one scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All of those things. Right now is the time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially as we head into the flu and cold season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Adams. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/Adams, plural, to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
3, 2, 1. Happy New Year from our friends at Manscaped. The ball has officially dropped, but that doesn't mean you have to drop the ball on your balls in 2023. Whether you had a New Year's kiss or not, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming have you covered for a much-needed resolution in bringing sexy back. Join the 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code ADAM23 for 20% off, plus free shipping. Let us have a toast for a new year, new you, and a new you with no pubes. This year, take your package to the next level with their Performance Package 4.0 and other premium wet goods. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find their signature lawnmower. Their advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts and nicks on your delicate parts. That's always good. It also comes equipped with a 4000K LED spotlight that'll shine a light to the promised land. And the grooming routine isn't complete without applying that crop preserver and crop reviver. These unique foundations take care of the smelliest parts of your body and are a big boost to your confidence in the new year. So if you really want to make 2023 the year to remember for you and for someone you care about, make sure to try out Manscaped's wet goods as well. This includes the Ultra Premium Body Wash, the 2-in-1 shampoo, and body deodorant. So cheers to new balls in 2023. Get 20% off and free shipping with code ADAM23 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code ADAM23. It's time to feel sexy and free in 2023 with Manscaped. With all the traveling, taking care of kids, coaching, podcasting, and everything in between, it's hard for us at Team Hoge Jahns to find a shirt that fits all occasions. That is, until we found Rhone. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Rhone's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, flexible set of products known to man. Here's why. Rhone helps you get ready for any occasion with the commuter collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Rhone commuter collection. Mobility is everything. Rhone's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility. It leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to your work to your 18 holes of golf. And it's time to feel confident without the hassle. With Rhone's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the products. It's that easy. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Rhone's 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. Rhone has been the perfect press box, parenting, and our personal favorite shirt ever since we got them, and we know you'll love them too. The commuter collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next, so head to rhone.com/Adam and use promo code ADAM to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your order when you head to rhone.com/Adam and use code ADAM. it's time to find your corner office comfort.
Well, we got to keep this thing moving. There's a lot to get to. We, on the Justin Fields side of things, we actually recorded this a couple of days ago. So if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to magically change and look different and have our different backgrounds. Well, I will.
We're going to put clothes on that we had on the other day.
Yep. And I'm going to morph into a different studio. Nate Tice is our guy. We love him. He loves Justin Fields and probably more than he loves us, which is cool. We love checking in with him from time to time. And now that the season's over, we want to get his thoughts on what he saw, especially because there was a dip at the end of the season. Now we got to kind of put it all in major context. But we had a really fun discussion with Nate Tice, as always. We also got into some draft talk, some free agent wide receiver talk. Nate's on top of all this stuff. So hope you enjoy it. Here's our conversation with Nate Tice. All right. Well, with the season over, seemed like a pretty good opportunity to bring our guy Nate Tice back into the podcast. All things quarterbacks, NFL draft, Justin Fields fan club. Everybody knows the drill here. Nate, thanks for jumping out with us again.
About 2% Badger talk in there just to sprinkle that in, just cover all the bases. I know I feel like we do like a 3-month checkpoint. I think me coming on here, it's like every 3 months, it's regular, just coming in and out. This is the third trimester, I guess.
Like
maybe for my check it out.
Sounds like a new father, right?
Right. Know all the terms now.
Right. We get the quarterly Tice report. I like this. It's good. I think we're on to something here.
I know. I want to get to the TRL where I get retired. What is it like after 50 appearances or whatever? I'm referring to something from 25 years ago, so maybe this isn't the best thing to really pull in viewers with TRL talk.
Well, we could start doing it like SNL has like the 5 episode
I think it is.
Robe, I think they do. So if we do 50 appearances, we get you some kind of Hoge Jahns.
Okay.
I don't know.
Sweatshirt. Should get them some sweatshirts anyway.
From obvious shirt. Yeah, something like that. All right, Nate. Season's over for the Bears. Justin Fields. Was it a win for how do you look at this season? Was it a win for him?
I think it was, in the sense that it's like, okay, this guy does some things that can give him, like, continue to give him playing time. I think it's just so funny. This is not how I pictured Justin Fields as the NFL quarterback. I knew he was a great athlete and had great size, but didn't think that his bread and butter right away would just be one of the best running threats, one of the best weapons in the NFL is him as a running threat, even despite that. But I think it was, because there's times where it showed that he was a viable NFL quarterback and not just an idea, even if it wasn't always pretty, especially right there at the tail end of the season. But I think it was a win. It might have been like a 14-13 squeaker of a win, but I think it was a victory for Justin Fields this season to at least show that he's a real quarterback that's showing progress. And that's what all you can hope for, really, especially in the situation that the Bears were in this year.
So when you see that the Bears finished with like the worst passing offense in the league, like by far, how much is that on Fields, or is it a matter of situation, the help around him? How do you encapsulate that stat?
Yeah, every question in football, especially, is it's almost like a puzzle, and you're figuring out what size puzzle piece everything is. I would say a lot of it was situation, maybe 70 to 80%, but some of it was Fields. And there were stretches where I thought he could be his worst enemy, like him trying to create and the big game hunter aspect of his game can lead to the best plays, but also can lead to the what was that. So like there's still that 20 to 30% aspect of that. But I mean, they can't legit, if there was any time that was 3rd and 5 or longer, it was like you're scared, because this offense couldn't drop back. The center's going the wrong way most of the time. The offensive line, it was just they pick their poison, not pick their poison, just pick a door and somebody's going to get blown through with the offensive line. And on top of it, you had not a lot of guys that could win consistently. You had a lot of that's what I've kind of noticed with this Bears kind of receiving core. It's a lot of 3s and 4s, like even like Mooney. Like if they were on a good offense, those guys would be role players, not eating 50 reps a game and dozen targets a game. So I think long answer short is that it was mostly the situation, but still Fields has those issues, and this situation sometimes expounded them. It made him, magnified them, and then sometimes he was able to kind of nullify the negatives of the situation with his own playmaking or some really good throws down the field.
Well, to go off of that real quickly, what were some of the issues that maybe you saw consistently in the past? You've called him a big game hunter, and that kind of led to him holding the ball a little bit. I think we can all agree he did some of that this year. So what were some of the issues that you saw be persistent for him this season?
It's exactly that. It's when I still think it seems by all accounts, and I've said this on the show before, and I think you guys confirmed it, is that he's a very intelligent guy. And I think sometimes is that he doesn't shortcut things to help himself out. He tries to be too perfect in the sense of, I'm going to 1, now I'm going to 2, now I'm going to 3. Oh, now I'm getting into creation mode. And it's like sometimes it's a little too late. I still think he has to learn. That's what quarterback play is not going always 1 to 2 to 3. It's, hey, I'm getting cover 2. Number 3 is now my number 1. And I think that's what he has to learn to cut the fat out of all those stuff, speed his own processing up, which I think he improved on. But I still think that's an issue sometimes, is that when that pre-snap read number 1 doesn't go how he thinks it's going to go, he kind of gets into like you can see the consternation happening with him trying to process a little bit. I think I'm starting to kind of throw this comparison around a little bit. Some of the issues he's had were the issues that Daniel Jones had as a quarterback, and that he is smart, but maybe sometimes that quick processing doesn't get there. I think Fields is a better prospect and it has way more potential than Jones ever had, but he still has that thing where it's just like, I have to get to number 3 now. And he's just hanging in the pocket. And here comes the pass rusher just bearing down on him. So I think that's what he still has to continue to improve upon. I think what stinks is that sometimes the times where I did see in games where he was playing quick, the Vikings game at Minnesota, I believe is one where I can kind of really see him kind of like going, we're in empty. Number 1's not open. I'm scrambling. And usually that's a negative with some quarterbacks, but he has shown that he's trying to do the harder stuff, but really it's the opposite of what you usually try to teach quarterbacks. Hey, stop bailing from the pocket. With Justin, it's like, no, do bail. The situation isn't good. So I think he's trying to figure out that equation for him, that every quarterback has their own chemistry of when to bail, when to stay in the pocket. And I think that's what he still has to work on. That's where he saw a lot of the blemishes happen with him.
This might seem like an obvious follow-up, but how much does having that clear-cut dude at wide receiver help what you're talking about? Because I got to imagine it's so much easier to read those pre-snap coverages and know what you're doing when it's got to be harder on the defense to disguise those things when there's that type of threat on the field.
Absolutely matters. And not only that, like if you think of a trips 3-by-1 formation, a trips formation where you have one guy, a lone receiver, who's usually your best receiver, your X, the Devontae Adams, the DeAndre Hopkins, those types of players, Justin Jefferson, is when you're in those, you have a trips read, which is, some zone beater or maybe even a man beater to the 3-man side, some combination that you have to read out. Sometimes though, on that read, I can just pick my one-on-one and take that 1-man route and just pin it on them. Whether it's usually a stop route, a vertical route, a comeback route, a slant, something of that sort. And a good way to like what I'm talking about is watch the Chargers offense with and without Mike Williams. Mike Williams is that X receiver, ball winner, vertical guy. And Justin Fields, because this is a traditional offense, they run a lot of trips. He will just go, or Justin Herbert, I should say, I'm not going to read the trips out. I don't know what DeAndre Carter is doing. I'm just going to take my one-on-one and pin the ball on him. That does help. it helps so much because it just gives you that tool in your toolbox. Here, you're like, do I want to take Mooney one-on-one on a physical route? Do I want to take, we got Komet split out there. Is that really who I want to take there? And so, okay, I'm going to just progress through this concept like I should. And you don't have that guy. Also for play designers too, not only just the quarterback, because you think for years, the Packers, it was great. Wow, we really like this 3rd down concept. Okay, let's put number 17 there, in the slot. Let's put number 17 as the lone receiver. It helps them out to go, this guy's starred and highlighted on this concept, and then you go from there. So it just makes everyone's lives easier. But yeah, I know it sounds obvious, but it's like, yeah, it makes the quarterbacks' lives easier and the play callers' lives easier.
You were so high on Luke Getsy when we talked to you in the preseason. We stood with you in the bleachers at training camp. 17 games now in the books. Justin Fields became a highlight reel machine. I'm just curious, what are your final thoughts on what Luke Getsy did as being a first-time play caller in the NFL?
I liked it. This was what I kept saying with Getsy was that he knows what he has too. I don't think Getsy was under any. You see too many play callers get in and think they still had some dominant offensive line, the Mike Martzes of the world. Hey, I can do the stuff I did with the Rams. I can drop back 7 steps with a 31st ranked, 32nd ranked offensive line. Getsy knew there was a reason they ran the ball so many times on third down. There's so many times they ran zone run plays, which helps your offensive line. I think there were times that they were trying to run some convoluted read. I wouldn't say convoluted, but high-end read to get somebody open, to pop them open because they're not going to win on their own. I'm still high on him. I think he understands what he's got. It wasn't always great. Some game plans were better than others, but I could see what he was always trying to do. There was never where I was like, why are you doing that with him? Like he took out some plays that I think last year that Nagy was running with Fields that were not conducive to his skill set. I think Getsy was trying, hey, some more verticalness, some more play action, a lot of boots, just to help out our offensive line and just make things help out with Fields. I just want to see him get some toys. And I really still am optimistic about Getsy. I think he did a fine job for what he was given this year.
Yeah, I always say, Nate, that it's hard for an offensive coordinator to look good when, specifically when the offensive line is bad. Like when things don't get blocked up, it's hard to call the right play. And I think when we factor that in with the lack of weapons the Bears had, the fact that we're even just out of the season going, yeah, Luke Getsy is probably the most optimistic you are about any of the coaches on the staff right now. I think that says a lot about the type of season that he had just as a coordinator, because if you really look at it, it shouldn't have been pretty.
No. Compare him to what they were doing to what the Texans were doing. And the Texans have, Pep Hamilton, I'm very high on. Texans at times was like they couldn't even get a yard. And I know the Bears fans feel that way. Bears, I mean, if you looked for weeks and weeks and weeks, especially when Khalil Herbert was healthy, how many explosive runs the Bears were ripping off without even Justin Fields, not even including him, just running back zone runs. That's not by luck. You can't really, you're not really going to look at this offensive line and go, well, I can get 15 yards with, that offensive line with Sam Mustipher blocking for me. It's a big difference between running the ball between this line and then the Eagles offensive line, So
right.
that's
it was sorry to interrupt you, but it was with the players they already had, or
yes.
replacement players that came in that really were like replacement level players, not
Yes.
top tier guys, except maybe Tevin Jenkins, who did take a big step forward.
He did in position change and all that. It was sub replacement level players replacing replacement level players. That's what it was. There was a lot. That's the thing. There's players where there's backups on teams. The Lions are playing backup offensive linemen all those backups could start for the Bears. That is just, and they're backing up and playing that 6 offensive lineman snaps. Like that is the level of depth. It's not even just high end talent. It's just depth. And that they're missing both of it. And that's, like you said, it's really hard to do any offensive function. We've seen Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs get run out of a Super Bowl because they couldn't block. Now imagine the Bears with no receivers or anything like that. So that's the situation that they got put in this year.
So speaking of new toys, you have the Bears going into, well, let's start with free agency with nearly $119 million. I don't think they're going to use all that. If you listen to Ryan Poles this week, he kind of threw out that a message. Maybe it's a message to the agents. Hey, we have a lot of money, but we're not going to spend it all.
Right.
Like, how would you spend it? You told us before the show started that you started to look at some of the free agent wide receivers.
Yeah, I for sure restocked the receiver cover. I know they did the Chase Claypool trade, which we can talk at a later date or another time, but I understood the thinking with that was, we're going to get this big receiver and give Justin Fields some help. But of course they trade for the big receiver that plays small, which is like, but I think this receiver, I think a lot of people have looked at this free agency class and gone like, man, there's not a lot of guys at the top, but I do think there's a lot of tangible players. Like I think contenders are going to have a field day in this free agency class because there's a lot of those a lot of cherry on top type of players. But for me, there's 3 guys of this, just looking at the receiving class, that I would have circled and highlighted, and that's DJ Chark, Allen Lazard, and Jacoby Myers. DJ Chark was with the Lions this past year. Allen Lazard, of course, with the Packers, and Jacoby Myers with the Patriots. I would say if you could get 2 of those 3, you're doing good. You're doing well, because I think even if those guys are not number ones, you're not going to get a number 1 on the free agency market. Those guys are tangible number 2 to number 3 type players. I think Jacoby Myers could be a high-end number 2 type, but they're useful. Allen Lazard is a great blocker. He can play inside, play outside. He's great on third down. He's a big body that gives Justin Fields, who likes to throw into tight spaces. Jacoby Myers can play inside or outside. You're not getting these guys are just one-off type players. That's one of my problems with the Christian Kirk contract last year, the Jaguars signed. Trevor Lawrence needed help at receiver, but they're getting a slot-only player, and they're spending $18 million on it. That's a little too much for me. Useful players that can play a lot of snaps and are bigger bodies. And then DJ Chark is a true X. Gives a little juice and a little vertical element. Again, more of a number 2, number 3 type. I think if you got 2 out of those 3, those guys are just useful players. So those are the 3 guys I would have circled if I were the Bears. And I think Jacoby Myers is going to get paid pretty well this offseason, but those other guys, I think you can get on decent sized contracts as long as you're not breaking the bank. This is the time to do it. Those 2-3 year deals for these types of guys.
Jacoby Myers seems like a Poles Flus guy. I know he's well liked and respected there. When that whole play happened with the pitch back against the Raiders, everybody was like, why couldn't this have happened to like an asshole instead of somebody that everybody in that organization loves?
Right.
He just seems like a good fit. And then Lazard's got that connection with Getsy Packers connection. What if I told you that the room, I guess your top 5 receivers then would be, let's say they get Myers and they get Lazard with Mooney, Claypool. They already signed EQ back. And then they draft, somewhere in the second, third round, another guy who's probably not quite ready to put up big numbers as a rookie. So you still those are 6 wide receivers right there. None of them though are technically that dude that we were talking about. Do you still feel confident though that Justin Fields would be in a much better spot with that receiver room?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even getting, and I've said this before, talking about other kind of positions, or I was talking about the Bengals offensive line when I talked about this. I think a lot of people, when you have crap at one position group, that you improve it and everybody wants all pro, and you're going from crap to the best, to elite. But going from crap to average is still a huge improvement. And that's what I think that room, say it's Myers, Lazard, and Claypool and Mooney, and that front 4 or that top 4, say what you want about Velus Jones, but that top 4 is it's solid. It's solid, and you can do a lot. They have some nice kind of synergy in the room. And I think that's where, because now Mooney you can move Mooney how you want to move him around. He doesn't have to be outside all the time. He can kind of be the off-ball guy moving around, because now you have size and throughout. I think that's such an improvement, because also just the skill sets are more conducive to Fields, bigger bodies with bigger catching ranges that can go inside and outside. So again, that's why I think that kind of mishmash of getting these 2, the receiver draft is a little different than the last 2 seasons. There are some middle round guys that maybe have some size, like A.T. Perry from Wake Forest. He might be more like a second round type. That's where pick 32 would have been nice. But he would have been like a nice ball winner with a potential to be a real X. But then there's, but give you some leeway to maybe take a swing on more of a project type, because he doesn't have to play right away. You have some smart guys that can eat these reps.
Nate, how many teams do you think need quarterbacks in the NFL right now?
I always try to go left to right in my head, like West Coast to East Coast, like 6. I'm trying to think, maybe more than that, but 6, I would say.
6, 7,
give or take. Yeah. 6,
okay.
7.
So if you're the Bears and you have the first overall pick, how flexibility was used by Ryan Poles? But I like the word opportunity. This is something you need, because some of these teams are going to be desperate. You have certain teams with owners, look at the Colts, that could press the issue. What type of opportunity does Ryan Poles maybe have with Justin Fields as his quarterback? He does have a lot of holes, but to have that first overall pick, what does he have?
A huge opportunity, because not only is this this quarterback class is interesting. It's not the super deep one maybe of 2020 or 2021. And it wasn't last year's, which had nobody. Ritter looked okay though. I'm starting to feel pretty good about my Ritter #1 selection or QB1 pick. But I would say this opportunity that he has is great because it's an eye of the beholder quarterback draft. And that's good because, hey, there's only 2 teams that like Will Levis from Kentucky. Oh, there's 2 teams that like him. Well, now they get into a competition with each other, but then there's 3 teams that like Bryce Young. And then there's 1 team that loves CJ Stroud, or 3 teams that love Stroud. Maybe there's a team that likes Richardson. Like there's from Florida is with these that at the top of the draft. Now you get into hey, you like this guy, right? Well, this team likes him too. The Colts really like Levis. So, hey, you want to come up and creep up for him too? I think that gives them so many more avenues rather than I would say when the Jaguars had Trevor Lawrence, like that's easy. Okay, we're taking Trevor Lawrence, move on. The number 2 pick is the juicy pick, obviously, so like that, because you can move up and like whatever, the Jets stayed pat with Zach Wilson. But I think it's a huge, huge opportunity. I think for them, though, you want to stay in that top 6-ish range, though. I don't think you want to do the Goff or the Wentz trade where, the Eagles and the Rams moved up
1 to 15
from the teams. Yeah. I say you want to stay in that top 6, 7 because I know the Bears need assets. They need players. They just need tangible starters. But a guy like Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, those guys are foundational pieces for a team those are true blue chip, like stars. Those are like Julius Peppers types, like potential. Like that's why I'm kind of like hedging on people going like, oh, well, we need like 5 day 2 picks. Like we need a haul. We need 2 first rounders to like go back into the teens. I'm like, you want to stay in striking range. You want to stay where where how many quarterbacks get picked, and we can still get one of these 2 guys. So I think if you can get that balance, it could be a great offseason for the Bears to get picks, get one of those stars, and really build around Fields, which is what I think the path should be.
And speaking of that path, I mean, we're all operating under that assumption that is the path that they are going to build around Justin Fields. Ryan Poles said that he would have to be blown away by one of the quarterbacks to take them at number 1. So when I hear that, I'm thinking not that there's ever such thing as a flawless quarterback prospect, but there's certainly been years like Trevor Lawrence's year, which was a strong QB class, where it was like, okay, this guy is number 1.
Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck's year, Peyton Manning's year, like
even Stafford, like those guys. It's like a true one.
So my question, you guys, you've watched these quarterbacks more than I have at this point by far. Is there that blown away, clear cut number 1 QB in this draft?
There is not, in my eyes. I keep saying, people say Bryce Young is the number 1 pick. I think Bryce Young's off of half the team's boards because of his size. He's a great football player. Don't get me wrong. You're going to hear this the next 4 months. It's going to be exhausting by the time we hit the combine. He's a great football player. He's extremely small. If he goes in the first round, he'd be the first quarterback under 200 pounds since Jim McMahon drafted in the first round. So he's an outlier. He's an all-time outlier.
So you played with Russell Wilson though. Like, how does he compare? Can you make any leaps like that to I know he's probably not as mobile, but he does move around the pocket and create those throwing lanes like Russell has been always able to do.
The thing is, it's just the size. Russ has 25 pounds on Bryce Young, and that matters. It really matters. If you break down quarterbacks under 205, 210, like Zach Wilson, that was one of my things about Zach Wilson I was like, he weighed 212, but that's water weight. You look at this guy, he looks small, especially playing with BYU. Those guys just get hurt, especially if they're kind of a runner. I hate to sound like that. That's just automatic, but it's just physics. It's just the NFL and taking those shots, and especially the play style. The thing with Bryce Young to me is he's like 80% or 85% of Kyler Murray in every way. Play style, gaming, but 85% of his arm strength. Kyler has great arm strength and one of the best deep ball throwers. We just haven't seen it in a couple of years. But Kyler's probably got an inch on Bryce Young height wise, and Kyler's probably got 15. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's small. That's how Bryce Young's small. It's like I'm trying to get across, and he'd be a true outlier. And Kyler's probably got 15 pounds on Bryce Young at least. Just even though Kyler is tiny, he still has that little bit of a thick build. And I think he has a little more juice than Bryce Young. Bryce is a great play extender. I don't want to dog him too much because he's a great football player. He just, his play style is hard to do in the NFL at that size, just consistently over long term. That's why I have hangups on him right now. As where we're doing this January 10th, I have Stroud from Ohio State as QB1, and then I would take a home run swing on Anthony Richardson as my QB2. He would be a project, but I don't think he's as big of a project as people has made him out to be. I would have hangups taking him in the top 10, but middle, late first round, hell yeah, especially a team like the Lions that has 2 first round picks or something like that. But why I'm saying all this is there's not just one dude. It's a bunch of, if you ask 10 people that watch these 4 guys, the rankings are all going to be different. Or at least, a couple guys might have the same, but it's all over the place. But that's why I say it's none of these guys I have as a higher prospect than Fields when he was coming out, or how I feel about Fields now.
Well, and that was just what I was about to ask you. So if Fields is in this draft and not current Justin Fields, coming out of Ohio State Justin Fields, he's the number 1 quarterback. Yep. And in which case, with what you just said about Will Anderson and Jalen Carter being foundational pieces that are blue chip, it would sound to me, based on all this information, granted it's only January 10th, that it would be idiotic to pull off one of these scenarios where people are saying the Bears should trade Fields and draft one of these quarterbacks.
Personally, I think it would be idiotic. I think Fields is a full tier better as a prospect. I'm pretty harsh on my quarterback grading. I had him and Trevor Lawrence closer together and then Fields with the other 3 guys that went in the first round that year. I think Fields is probably still my second best prospect I've watched in my time as a evaluator. So I'd say 8-ish years or so. But yeah, I just don't think any of these guys are to the level. I had somebody tweet at me, start Kyle Orton, which is he's a Bears fan that follows me on Twitter. He's great. But he goes, any of these mystery boxes could be Justin Fields. Like, that's what, any of these guys could be Justin Fields, but it's like, but you already have Justin Fields. So why would you do that? Right. And I hear the cost control stuff about the rookie contract. I think that's just theory. NFL is so year to year, especially with your team makeup. And honestly, a number 1 pick quarterback would make more money than Justin Fields would over the next 2 years. That's also, yes, you have the other 2 years, but if Justin Fields is your dude, you're ecstatic. It's what you're going for. So I don't think, I think Fields is a clear tier better than these guys as prospects anyways.
Boy, our podcast listeners are going to love to hear that. I think, we'll continue to talk it out with you, Nate, obviously over the off season and as we get closer, but it does seem like I understand the excitement in Chicago over the position the Bears are in, but it's also refreshing to hear, national guys like you look at it from an outsider's perspective and see that same thing. One of the things we've been talking about as we let you go is just like how improbable it actually was that the Bears ended up with the number 1 pick, considering that, like, we've seen years where teams are just clear cut the worst 2 teams in the league, and you kind of know it. Like, the Bears were competitive in a lot of these games this year and lost so many games on like 1 or 2 plays that they probably should have won. And then you add in the cap space, the draft capital, like they're really sitting in a really good spot.
They are. So. And I'm optimistic about Eberflus. I know the wins, losses weren't on there, but just how this team competed. I told you guys this when I watched them practice. Like, I don't know. It just seems like they have good bones there. I don't know. I know they have the number 1 pick and all that in the last month, but like you're saying, they went toe to toe. Like, they played, ignore like the very last games, but they went toe to toe with the Eagles late in the season and played.
The Bills game was close.
The Bills game, yes,
for a little bit,
for a little bit. Talent wins out in the end. Yeah. They have this guy named Josh Allen who's pretty damn good. No, but that's when you watch it and watching, like, just even watching the Bears defense and how they configure their defense every week. They're game playing the crap out of these offenses or just these opposing teams. And what's always fun is you can see, say, like the Eagles game, how they played the Eagles and some of the pressures they brought. Also, I'm watching the Giants, and Wink Martindale does bring a lot of pressures. Jalen Hurts is in there. It was the same stuff the Bears defense was doing a couple of weeks ago. So they're showing exposure. They just don't have the horses to kind of like, do this.
The Giants are just doing it with better players.
and just cranking up and playing with nothing, just whatever. They have some guys. They have this guy, Dexter Lawrence, is pretty damn good too. But that's exactly it. But that's a good thing. That's like other teams are going like, hey, that was a good idea that they had. That was nice. And even just on the offense with Getsy again, and just some of the, I remember we talked about the cadence usage. Like you could see it in the second half of the year. They were doing some tempo stuff. Like I don't know, the bones are good. I think they really are. It's just that, they need some more meat on them, which is personnel and some juice on offense and defense.
Yep. They need the talent. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nate, you're the best. We appreciate you jumping
Thanks,
on with
guys.
us again. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at Nate_Tice, reading all his great work on The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns, where you go to subscribe. Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nate.
All right, great stuff with Nate Tice. I think he's still I found it very interesting, specifically how much conviction he has on the idea that Justin Fields would still be the number one quarterback in this draft.
Yeah, I also like what he said in terms of, since there isn't like a Trevor Lawrence like prospect, that may drive trade talks a little bit more, because certain teams will be blown away by certain things in certain quarterbacks, and that drives conversations and it drives movement.
Yeah.
We saw that happen here.
One quick thought on something that's been going around in the last couple of days. I know Mike Tannenbaum's made like a lot of headlines on his trade Justin Fields, and he makes it clear it's not like he doesn't like Justin Fields, but the thing you got to understand when he says that, it's very obvious that he specifically just loves Bryce Young. And that's what this is about. It's like, if you love Bryce Young to the point that you're convinced he's going to be the next like MVP of the league, okay, then in that scenario, then maybe you think about making that type of move. But if that's not how you feel, then to me, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a little bit now. I think Justin Fields has earned the right, call it that, to play with better players, like to be built around. And the Bears deserve it, he deserves it, and the Bears should provide it for him.
Yeah.
I should phrase it that way. And just because you're building around Justin Fields doesn't mean you're not building around that next quarterback. You know what I mean? Just in case this doesn't pan out in 2025, if you still got a good offensive line, you got a good receiver, the next quarterback should be in a better place too, even if that's a veteran or a second-year up-and-comer. Time to pour resources into improving your offense, and that starts with building around Justin Fields.
And the other thing I'll say real quick, because if that's how he feels about Bryce Young, then good for him, man. And there's probably some team, like I always say every draft year, it only takes one team, right? There's probably some team out there that feels the same way about Bryce Young. And that's why I think it's such a valuable thing to hold the number one overall pick for the Bears. I don't know what Ryan Poles thinks. I do know he likes Justin Fields. But the one criticism I do have of what Mike Tannenbaum keeps saying is the idea that you reset the rookie contract. I get that. But what he doesn't mention is you're also resetting the rookie development. And look at it. We're 2 years into this thing with Fields, and it doesn't always happen
instantaneous.
It's not just Fields. Look at Lawrence. Lawrence finally started making strides this year, but he's still not perfect. All these guys, no matter who they are, take a couple years. Patrick Mahomes was really the exception. By the end of year 2, you were like, that dude's the dude. But even Josh Allen, as we've talked about, year 3. So there's very rare instances where that's not the case. And cool, you're resetting the rookie contract. You're also starting all over with a rookie quarterback. So that's the other side I think you got to keep in mind there. All right, let's talk about these playoff games this weekend, Johns. We'll start with Saturday on Fox, 3:30, the Seahawks at the 49ers.
I think the Seahawks keep this closer than the 10 points they're getting.
Okay.
I don't think they win. The 49ers defense is too good, but I feel like I like Geno Smith to make more plays than Brock Purdy when the moment is needed, even if he's under duress. I'm taking the 49ers by 7 points, but I think the Seahawks can make this interesting. Maybe get a backdoor cover. Maybe they flirt with covering. 49ers win, but yeah, Seahawks and the points.
Yeah, I do think the Seahawks hang around, but the 49ers are a machine right now. And the part where I kind of disagree with you is I just think the Seahawks are really struggle to score in this game against that 49ers defense. So even if it ends up being like 20-7 or 24-10, like I still they might hang around for a while, but I still think in the end the 49ers cover. And so at some point we'll talk about the Brock Purdy thing.
I should like the 49ers have been a dominant football team for like a long stretch now.
But then they did have that weird game 2 weeks ago against the Raiders where Jared Stidham lit them up.
It's true.
But sometimes you need a wake-up call in the middle of the season, I guess. So, all right, next game.
You're not listening, Chris.
NBC 7:15. Chargers at Jaguars. This is one of the more fun games of the weekend.
Yeah. I'm going to pick the Jaguars to actually win. I don't know why. Just this is a gut pick.
Okay.
Like the
They're
Chargers.
2.5-point home dogs.
Yes. So I'm taking the Jaguars to win and the points, obviously. I don't know why. Gut pick. Trevor Lawrence over Justin Herbert.
The flowage that's going on with these two quarterbacks with their hair. It's going to be glorious. Yeah. Two hockey guys out there playing quarterback. I think it's a fun game. I think it's close. I didn't like how Trevor Lawrence played last week, and maybe there's like a bounce back in there for him, but I still think the Chargers overall, the better team, more experienced team. The Jaguars are fun though. I'm going to take the Chargers to win, but I think I'll actually roll with the Jaguars 2.5 because I think this might come down to like the very end. Dicker the kicker, maybe?
Ooh. If there's going to be any upset this week, though, this is it. Right? Look at the other games quickly. This is it. Maybe that's why I'm picking the Jaguars.
I got an upset coming up for you.
All right.
Yeah.
Adam Johns, go ahead.
All right, CBS noon, Sunday. This game should be way better than it probably will be. Dolphins at Bills. No one really knows. So is it Skylar Thompson for sure playing quarterback?
Yeah.
Is Teddy out too?
Yeah. Here's your analysis. Bills by 14.
Yeah, maybe more. I just think they'd roll. Dolphins are, man, I really wish the Steelers had snuck back into the playoffs. I feel like just would have been a better situation. It would have been a better game, but I don't know. Do we know if DeMar Hamlin's going to be there or not? He's out of the hospital. You got to think that I don't know what his situation is right now, but just imagine that place if he's there. Place is rocking. I'll take the Bills. I think it's that easy.
Really good, Adam.
All right. Fox, 3:30. Also on Sunday. This is part of a triple header on Sunday. The Giants at the Vikings. Vikings a 3-point favorite.
I'm tempted to go against my guy, but I'm going to go with my guy.
You're going to go with your guy.
Kirk Cousins, covering, winning by a touchdown.
I think this pushes. I think the Vikings win by 3. Can I predict a push? I don't know how that counts in the standings.
It's going to be a one-score game. That's what
Well,
the
look,
Vikings do.
These guys played on Christmas Eve at US Bank Stadium. The Vikings are 4-point favorites. The Vikings won by 3. Now it's a 3-point spread. I mean, it makes sense. It's going to be right in there, but the Vikings are good at pulling this out. The Giants, to me, aren't experienced enough to reverse that, so I will take the Vikings.
Hello, everyone. This is Al Riveron.
Okay. NBC 7:15 on Sunday night. Ravens at Bengals. Bengals 8.5-point favorites. This has come down a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah. Lamar Jackson's not playing, though, is he?
It doesn't seem like it.
He's been out for 7 weeks.
Yeah, and I think there's contract stuff going on there, and it's a mess. Give me the Bengals. The Bengals have secretly been playing like maybe the best team in the AFC for the last 2 months.
I remember at the beginning of the season, you kind of predicting they could be the Super Bowl hangover team.
Did I say that?
Yeah. Well, typically, I think you were saying that typically it's the losing team that has it, which you're not wrong. But the Rams,
yeah, the Rams are back.
Semi-imploded. Give me the Bengals by 10.
Okay, I got the Bengals covering. Little teaser. I have the Bengals winning the Super Bowl. So how about that flip? If I really said that preseason, I don't remember saying that, but maybe I did. All right, we got to get out of here. Monday, ESPN 7:15, Cowboys at Bucks. The Bucks are 2.5-point home favorite. This is my upset. I'm sure
home
it's
dog.
popular.
Home dog.
You give me Tom Brady at home as the underdog. By the way, Dak Prescott's been awful lately. Brady's been heating up. Prescott's been going. To me, it's that simple. Give me the guy who always finds a way to win in the playoffs. I'm going to go with Tom Brady here. I'm going to take the Bucks.
I love that there's a Monday night playoff game. I'll go with you. Brady and the Bucks.
There you go. All right. A couple people asked on Twitter, and they were right. We did not play the voicemails on Tuesday. Tuesday was an interesting show. There was a lot to get through with the press conferences. We do have your voicemails, though, from the season finale against the Vikings, and here they are.
Hello?
Do you know who this is?
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The Hoge Jahns voicemail. The Hoge Jahns voicemail line.
Believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beep.
Got any questions or comments about the Bears? Give the guys a call before, after, or even during the game.
Go Bears!
Hey, Hoge Jahns and Fab, it's Bob Nebraska here calling in from Soldiers Field, the most glorious place on the whole wide world there. We got Nathan Peterman, man, going in there to start against the Vikings today, and I am a little bit nervous. This is the one time in the history of my entire life, which spans 100 years, that I want the Bears to lose a football game. And Nathan Peterman is in there, and what makes me nervous, this guy has had trial by fire. Do you remember he threw 7 interceptions in the first half against the Bears a few years ago? I talk about learning from your mistakes. There's no way he does that again. What gives me hope is he did not look good on that flea flicker throw earlier this year. Anyway, I think we're about done with this year if my math is correct, so get to the offseason. Let's go Vikings today. It feels disgusting coming out of my mouth, but it is what it is. Let's go Texans. Go Lovey. Get one for the Bears. Go Texans. Bear down.
I mean, taking a delay of game on a 4th and 12 and then punting, I really do think they've embraced this head. Well done, Chicago Bears. I'm very proud of you. Screw. Well done. Straight to your arm. Well done, guys. And Houston being up by 10. Lovey Smith, you beautiful man. Dead up.
Hoge Jahns, calling in from Santa Clara, California. Bears down 10. Texans up 10. Keep the tank rolling. Let's go. Bear down. First overall pick. Bears down. Let's go. Bears. Chicago Bears. Bear down. Super Bowl 2023. Let's go. Bears down.
You know, Hodge was right after all. That Davis Mills is a pretty good quarterback. Way to go, buddy. Bears first pick of the draft. Guys, thank you for making a terrible season fun, as it could be. You guys are class act. Have a great summer. Bye.
Lovey Smith and the Texans from the grave. Let's go, Texans. Chicago Bears, you are on the clock.
Hoge Jahns, what an end to the season, guys. Whiskey, Cokes, and Brewskis to go around to you both, and to the Fishman for your excellent Bears coverage this season. To Lovey Smith for being a baller and going for 2, and to the Lions for stopping the Packers from being in the playoffs. Super excited about the offseason and feeling great about Poles, Flus, and Fields steering the ship in 2023 and beyond. The future's so bright. Cheers, guys. Bear down.
Hey, Bears fans, B-Man here. Today was rough, but it's all about the future and that number 1 pick. Bear down!
Hoge Jahns and babe, it's Bob Dabrowski. The Bears have the number 1 pick overall. There are things the Bears can do. There are things the Bears should not do. But the bottom line is the Bears have the number 1 pick overall. Johnsy Bed, that's a little ditty for you. You know you like rhymes, and I probably rhymed a couple of times in there. Bears got the number 1 pick overall. Let's go Bears!
All right, Johns. Boy, that was a mega episode.
Mega.
We got to get out of here. I got to get on CHGO. We got to do an emergency pod there, too. Check out the merch, Hoge Jahns. obviousshirts.com. You can read all of our coverage on Kevin Warren, everything else. Johnsy's on The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns. They've been doing a great job with this story. You can get our coverage at allchgo.com. And we're out of here for now. I assume there's going to be a press conference on all this, so we'll get back at you when we find out all that. And we're not going anywhere. We got you covered all off season. It's going to be a busy, crazy one. And as this week has shown, it already is. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.